Guess who's back? Back again.
Shady?
After a month of being away from doing this. The Reality Redemption Podcast is back in our unprofessional Reality Redemption studio.
Our amateur.
It's
amateur hour, folks.
Yeah.
We should state, yes, that we do not get paid for this podcast, so
right,
that would make us
amateurs. Or
amateurs.
anything like that.
That would make us amateurs if we didn't get no pay.
And we don't get like a professional sound studio either to work in.
Because, okay, technically aren't Olympic athletes, even though they're very, very good, they're considered amateurs because they have not gone pro yet.
Right, and they'll become professional someday.
Right.
It takes a lot of practice, though.
Right.
So, speaking of Eminem, there was like a lot of backlash after the halftime show, which I thought was awesome.
Me too. I liked it.
But the backlash was obviously always coming from one side. And it was one of our county officials had said something like...
why are they so offended by everything?
She goes, welcome to the geriatric halftime show. Even though this person is older than
the performers.
Dr. Dre and Eminem and Snoop Dogg.
Right.
Hell, I'm older than Snoop Dogg. I'm almost as old as Dre. Which it seems hard to believe, but... and so I posted... They're
not geriatric, though. They're middle-aged.
Well, and somebody made a comment about the dancers while all grabbing their crotches and bumping and grinding on each other. So I went back and I watched it again, and I didn't see that happening. I didn't see the dancers bumping and grinding on each other.
And didn't Michael Jackson do that since the 80s? Was she not around for that either?
Well, it continues. And she posts, "This is what's wrong with America today." Now, I kind of said, well, was it you didn't like the music? She goes, no, I would have preferred a younger hip-hop artist. I'm like, okay, well, name one.
Like who?
Name one. It wasn't. You know what it was really about. I mean, if you don't like that type of music, that's fine.
She doesn't like the browning of America.
Right.
That's what it is.
Even though it was held in L.A., and where that stadium is really close to where the West Coast hip-hop movement started. I think that's why they chose that halftime show.
Right.
I thought I was up there and I'm not a big hip-hop guy, but I was sitting there just bopping away at it. I thought it was cool.
I liked it.
And then Eminem took the knee. But they should have known. It had nothing to do with Colin Kaepernick. Because he said it right in the song. My knees are weak. My arms are heavy. His
palms are sweaty.
His palms are sweaty. He was always sick from his mom's spaghetti. He said it all in the song.
I know. Like, what is wrong with people?
I don't know. And look at every other halftime performer. You had the Who did it. How old were they when they did it? Bruce Springsteen, Tom Petty.
Tom Petty, yeah, he was.
They were all over 50. J-Lo was probably 50 when she did it a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
Someone chimed in. She goes, well, I would have liked Bruno Mars. I'm like, well, he did it a few years ago. He's already done it twice.
I was going to say, I thought he did it back-to-back ones or something.
Beyonce did it. And you remember the backlash she got when Beyonce did it?
I know. Janet Jackson got in a lot of trouble for that boob.
Yeah, that's because of the boob. It seems to be a running theme on what they're offended by.
Right.
And, the strange thing is they're offended by the way people dance, but they're perfectly okay with chanting, "Let's go, Brandon," or driving around with their "fuck Joe Biden." And that's not offensive to kids. That's not offensive. So, anyway.
They're just idiots. We need to just ignore them.
That's our halftime recap. We were a little too drunk to do the recap last week.
Right, yeah.
We did post
Super Bowl. Because it was the Super Bowl.
Yeah. So, but, hey, I mean, who wouldn't slam a few 45s watching that fucking halftime show?
Right.
Yeah. Not Heather.
We have a guest today.
How you been, Heather?
I've been great.
Long time.
Yes, and I'm sorry to say I completely missed the Super Bowl and the halftime show and all the good commercials.
The commercials were sort of lacking. There were a few good ones, like the Sopranos one I really liked, and the sloth with the Doritos.
Yeah, I like the sloth. Sloths
Yeah.
are cool.
I missed the Clydesdale one somehow.
I think I did too, because I don't remember seeing it.
So, which gets to us next subject. Well, you missed the Super Bowl, Heather, partially because
And entirely because
you were on the flight from LA
to
to DC
Mhm.
that had to ground in Kansas City
That is correct.
because an unruly
Idiot.
customer, for lack of a better term.
Yeah, so I was flying cross country, so I honestly I was going to miss Super Bowl anyway. But I was busy being grounded and after an emergency landing in Kansas City. Absolutely.
And what happened?
So, well, let me first say I was near the back of the airplane, so I did not witness any of this firsthand. What I did witness firsthand was one of the flight attendants, and I will say he was hot and he was really nice and he was really good at his job. He came very quickly to the back of the plane, and you could hear him and a female flight attendant. We can cuss on this, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. There was a little bit of fuck shit, not on my flight, fuck shit.
Not on my
A
flight.
little bit of that going on. And he grabbed something from the back that
Duct tape?
I later learned was the coffee pot, the infamous coffee pot.
Oh.
I thought it was one of those breathing bag things, because at this
Yeah.
point, we think it's a medical emergency in the back of the plane. So, I didn't really see what he had, but I assumed it was those bags that you do the mouth-to-mouth with. And he just went flying right up front. And of course, we're all looking, and we really don't see much. But it becomes very clear that we are making an emergency landing before the pilot comes on.
Right. Now, just didn't the plane descend really quickly?
It was not that dramatic as that guy was tweeting about and the tweets that made all the news stories and whatnot.
Fake news.
We did descend very quickly. We were on the ground it was something like 8 or 9 minutes. So yes,
That is quick.
It was quick. The actual descent was not scary. But again, I did not witness what happened at the front of the airplane.
So he didn't start this until you guys were like almost to Kansas City then, obviously.
So, I'm not certain how long the whole thing took, but we were cruising along at 30,000 feet.
How far into the flight was it?
About 2.5 hours. So yeah,
Okay.
over the middle of the country.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Apparently what had happened, the guy, I didn't even see the guy. I saw that someone, after it all went down, someone was on the floor and it looked like people were sitting on him or around him or, whatever it looked like. But apparently he had some kind of mental health episode. So he wasn't, after I learned that, I was kind of like, well, it's not really right to call him an unruly passenger because it ignores the fact that he had some kind of mental health break.
Right. But didn't he feel, from what I've heard, he felt threatened by the person next to him?
Yeah.
And they offered to reset him?
So he was feeling threatened, like the people around him were out to get him. So they reseated him. And I actually spoke with the woman he was reseated next to when we were all hanging out at baggage claim. So she was then telling me, and the pilot told some of the story, and she was telling me, once he was reseated, he sat there for about 20 minutes and was very friendly, very chatty. Apparently he was going to DC to visit his children that he hadn't seen in a couple of years. Now, I don't know why he hadn't seen them in a couple of years, but he hadn't. I assume it had to do with the pandemic. But from there, I guess he put on his call light for the flight attendant. He wanted some water. And instead of waiting for the flight attendant to bring it back to him, he followed her up to the front galley of the airplane. And because they had already reseated him, they were already a little bit leery of him, the flight attendant, I guess, used the drink cart to kind of make sure that there was something between her and him, because she could tell he was a little off, wasn't quite certain what was going on. Somewhere in all of this, he attempted to open the cockpit door, obviously couldn't. Then the woman who I spoke to in baggage claim, who had been seated next to him after he was reseated, said he started kind of rifling through the cabinets that are up in the front galley. And the pilot confirmed this when he spoke to us. The man grabbed some silverware, which I don't know if it was metal silverware or plastic silverware. I'm not certain because it's the first class galley. But apparently he also tried to grab a champagne bottle from all the stuff for first class and use that as a weapon. And so at this point, obviously, the flight attendant's real leery and real nervous and trying to defend herself. And so then from there, he went over to the door of the airplane that's in the galley. So not where you enter from the jetway, but the other side of the airplane, and tried to open that door of the airplane while we're at 30,000 feet.
So he was the one who tried to open the door.
Yeah.
Okay, because I heard there was 2 plane incidents, and I wasn't sure which one was which.
Yeah, so he tried to open the door of the airplane. He was very insistent that
it would have sucked him out.
Well, he didn't think we were flying.
You can't open those doors.
Yeah, you can't actually get
but
them
I mean,
open
if you would have been able to, it would have sucked him out of it.
Yeah. So, and again, this is where the mental health break comes in. He thought we were still on the ground and just being held on the plane. And he wanted off the plane. And the woman who I spoke with in baggage claim said she heard the flight attendant tell him, "No, we're flying, just look out the window." And so something was going on with him.
So his wasn't over having to wear a mask.
No, it had nothing to do with masks that I'm aware of.
Oh, I thought that it was because he didn't want to wear his mask.
Yeah, not that I'm aware of. Now, mind you, the whole time in the back, we thought someone was having a heart attack. We did not know any of this was going on. Eventually the pilot came on. It was already clear that we were making an emergency landing.
And the pilot comes on and announces that.
Yes. We realized we were making an emergency landing, and then the pilot comes on and tells us we're making an emergency landing, telling us where we're at and, all of that.
But you're in your head, you're just thinking, well, there's a medical emergency. That's why we're stopping.
Yeah. In my mind, I'm like, okay, so, and I'm talking to the people next to me, and like the guy in my row, we were the only people to have an empty seat in between us. Like this was a full flight. Okay. So we're talking, and, the woman on the other side of me, we're talking, and, we're just kind of like, oh, are they going to keep us on the tarmac? Are we going to go to the gate? Is the ambulance going to meet us at the plane? Like, what does this look like? None of us have ever been in an emergency landing before. There was definitely an urgency about it. The flight attendants very quickly are doing their walkthroughs, and, there's still, like, when you look down the aisle, there's still people on the floor around this guy. And so again, I'm thinking medical emergency. And so we get on the ground, and
Can I ask this? Are the people still on top of him during the landing process?
Like I said, I never saw anyone, but yes, there are people on the floor in like the first class front part of the plane on the floor, and that's how they landed. Was on the floor.
Jeez.
Yeah. So we get on the ground, and, what looked like EMT folks, because, they've got the dark jackets and there's patches on their shoulders. So I'm thinking, oh, that must be the EMTs. They got their masks on and all that good stuff. And eventually the front there is clear and there's no one on the floor anymore. And, again, I still think it's a medical emergency. But it was a little odd because there was no ambulance there. And I'm like, oh, so we must be at the gate. They must have come in that way. Okay. So then the pilot comes on, and is announcing, "Thank you everyone for your bravery." And that was my first clue that this was not a medical emergency. Because like I said, I did not notice that the flight attendant took the coffee pot up front. I thought he had the bag for breathing. And then the pilot said, we're going to sit here. We're waiting for the FBI to get here.
Oh, the FBI.
Yeah.
So I was going to ask, do the cops come or
So
the local police?
I assume the local police were there. I didn't see them. Eventually some very, very large men got onto our plane, and those were the FBI agents. These were like some of the largest human beings I've ever seen, like 6'4", 6'5", big broad shoulders. After living in DC for years, back when, like, I've never seen FBI agents that were this big and brawny, and like they brought the muscle, Nice guys, they talked to some of the passengers. When he got to the back of the plane, we were like, no, we didn't really see anything. So he didn't really talk to us, but he gave us, a little bit of information and, nothing that we didn't already know at that point. But again, we didn't know everything. And so, the pilot gives us, updates every so often. The airline actually did a really good job. I wish they had given us more frequent updates, but they did a really good job of keeping us informed, letting us know what was going on. So they're talking about like, oh, the FBI is going to finish up and then hopefully we'll get on our way. And you know what? So at this point, we think we're leaving, when the FBI is done. But I guess the crew kind of hit however many hours that they're allowed to work.
Oh.
And so we had to get off the plane. They had to bring in a new crew. Our crew all fully agreed to keep working and continue the flight, but the airline wouldn't let them because of
Right.
Was it TSA or FAA or whoever's regulations?
8 hours a day or something like that.
Yeah. Whatever the regulations are. And so that's when we had to get off the plane. And they tell us that they're doing a security sweep as well. And they also needed to do a physical inspection of the airplane because we were not supposed to land 2.5 hours into the flight. So we still had too much fuel. And they didn't know what that was going to look like for trying to take off because of any kind of structural anything that could have happened. Mm-hmm. So they had to do all of that stuff as well. They made it sound like they were going to take our luggage off and rescan it or something. I don't think they did. I don't know.
Did they get that guy's luggage off?
I assume so.
How long are you on the ground in Kansas City?
I want to say 3 or 4 hours. Long enough to, talk to other passengers, get some dinner, wander around, buy a t-shirt. There's not a lot going on in the Kansas City airport.
Well, yeah.
It's kind of boring.
Maybe they had barbecue in there, though.
I didn't see it. I was thinking that, though.
That's probably because Kansas City assumed that they were going to be in the Super Bowl. So nobody was traveling that weekend.
Maybe. Now, so, we get off the plane and, we appear to be like at one extreme end of the airport. So, you come off and if you go to the right, there really didn't seem to be any more airport there. But if you went to the left, there was more airport. And I mean, this thing looked tiny. It looked like there was like 4 gates. But then if you just kind of kept going, there were these hallways, and it's this really weird, old kind of like 70s or 80s setup.
Have you ever been to like the Manchester, New Hampshire airport?
No, but I've been to the Syracuse, New York airport.
Okay, yeah.
And I was thinking it was small like Syracuse, and one of my friends is like, no, it's big. Whatever. I didn't go too far. But so here we are at what appears to be the extreme end of the airport. And if you go straight, you leave security. So they made sure to, tell us, do not continue straight, go to the left or the right. But to the right, there's a wall and a bar. And I'm like, oh, the rest of the flight's going to be interesting once we get back on that plane. The airline, like they rolled out like the big tall carts with all the snacks and the drinks and, so they had, granted it was like granola bars and those yummy biscotti cookies and like little bags of chips and crap like that. But, they were right there with all of that. The folks who they knew were not going to make their connecting flights in DC. They took care of their hotel vouchers. They took care of their food vouchers at that point because, that way they didn't have to deal with it in DC. They could just kind of go right on to get whatever it was that they needed. So like I said, I really think the airline handled it pretty well. Mm-hmm. Of course, we swapped out the crew. There was a lot of cheering and clapping when we finally landed on the ground in DC. Like literally, I think we were 5 hours late in total getting into DC.
Okay, well, that would be the one time to actually clap when you land. Because there's always a clapper, like, on every flight I've been. I'm like, are you kidding me?
Yep. Yeah. So, I gotta say, now, granted, this is probably an odd word to use, but it's definitely the most exciting flight I've ever been on. And I've been flying since I was a little kid.
Well, it's probably good that you did know what was going on because you probably would have been more panicked if you actually were up front and saw.
Yeah, I was thinking that too. I mean, because there was a lot of folks in Kansas City who were getting agitated. They just want to get back on the plane and get out. There were a lot of people who were really angry that we couldn't just stay on the plane and take off. I get it. Regulations, they suck, but they're there for a reason, Mm-hmm. But I think in part because I didn't know all the details of everything that was going on, and eventually the pilot came back and gave us kind of the full story. And so when the pilot came back after the FBI had mostly finished up, that was when I got like the full story. And that's when I find out that the man was having a mental health incident. And that, I think because I didn't see any of it, that's kind of why I was able to really just kind of keep my cool and be like, oh, okay, we need to roll with the punches. They'll get us there eventually. And,
Yeah, there's nothing you can do at that point.
Yeah.
He probably shouldn't fly, though. Like, he should consider himself, like, no fly. Like,
well, that's just it. I'm willing to bet that the no-fly list just got a new name on it.
Well,
yeah.
And then that goes into, well, actually we'll do this before we get to that. What was there like a media presence when you got into DC?
When we got down to baggage claim, now mind you, I only saw one reporter and one camera. I have not seen the news reports. So I don't know what, I mean, like I've seen like the written news and that one guy's tweets that were all over everything, who made it sound like the scariest thing ever. He was somewhere near, like I could tell from his photos where he was sitting. He was near the middle of the plane. So he may or may not have seen something actually happen. My understanding is there were some military guys and some air marshals who were the ones who like took the guy down. And that coffee pot, I think everyone's seen or heard the news stories. The flight attendant, kind of whacked the guy on the head a couple of times, which is what caused the bleeding that was reported. Apparently there was still coffee in it because I guess the flight attendant had some coffee stains on his collar afterwards. But at the end of the day, yes, I would have been freaked out to beyond belief had I known what was actually happening. And so, I feel fortunate that I didn't, but I also feel fortunate that in not knowing, I'm able to just have a lot of empathy for the man, and for his family. I mean, this incident is going to dramatically change his life. I mean, I don't know if he ever made it to DC. I don't know how this changes anything with his family or his ability to see them. If he's going to be in a mental health facility, if he's going to be in jail, I don't know, and that's scary, because I'm sure he didn't get on that flight thinking I'm going to freak out and try and open the door at 30,000 feet.
Yeah. Well, I mean, but you don't know these days because like air rage incidents are like almost a daily occurrence now where you hear about a flight getting diverted because somebody didn't want to wear a mask, and my take on that is, hey, if you're not for the mask at this point, you're not for the mask, whatever. But then don't fly.
It's not like it's a surprise.
Yeah.
I mean, the needing to wear masks in any sort of transportation system That's been around since pretty much the start of the pandemic, for the most part.
Yeah, like
and the flight attendants, they shouldn't have to deal with that.
No.
I mean, that's just, they're not babysitters.
right.
Kind of are. You know what was funny? On my flights coming back, I'd never noticed the pilots do this before. So my flights coming back went through Dallas and then back home. And both pilots, when they're going through their announcements, very clearly stated, and the flight attendants are my representatives in the cabin. You have to do what they say. I paraphrase, obviously. But basically, it's like, if you don't comply with what they say, and nowadays they do say, like, you might not be able to fly with us again. You will be prevented.
Right. And I think that should be the case. If I get having to warn somebody a couple times, I get it. I was on a flight to Tampa last year for the Super Bowl.
Oh, that's right. You went last year.
And the lady next to me the flight attendant would come over. Could you put the mask on? She would. And as soon as she walked away, they put it back down. And this occurred for 3 hours.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
it got to the point where,
like, are you a child?
I think I said that. I was like, unbelievable. I was like, kids listen better than this.
Yep.
And I said it out loud by the person next to me. But I think I said it loud enough so she could hear me. But I think that's the case. You get three warnings. After that, fine. Don't fly with us.
You're not allowed to fly with our airline.
And if it gets to the point, like there was one, I think 2 weeks ago, that it was a flight to London and had to get diverted, I believed, somewhere in Florida, where the person wouldn't wear their masks. If you're causing a major disruption like that, you're on a no-fly list. Mm-hmm. Permanently.
Yeah, and, I wouldn't be surprised if that's what happens to this guy, which, I feel bad for him. I don't know anything about him other than this incident.
Right, but, I mean, he's not healthy enough to fly. I mean, he's someone that should be put on the no-fly list that covers all airlines, so he can't go on another one and do this again.
My guess is that's probably what will happen.
Because usually...
I mean, when you have to be, duct taped and zip tied and escorted off the plane by the FBI, my guess is that they don't let you back on anytime soon.
Right, yeah, because that's extremely disruptive.
Yeah.
But usually I think with a lot of the incidents with the masks, people will get banned from that specific airline. They're like, you can't fly with us.
Yeah. Have they implemented that? Because I know there's talk about it.
No, they're trying to, like the lady that's the head of one of the unions, the airline unions, mm-hmm. She's been writing to Congress and saying, look, we need help.
Yeah.
We need you to put these people on the no-fly list. She wants them on the main no-fly list because they're just getting banned from one airline and then they'll just go fly on another flight and they'll start their shit there.
Well, but you have Rand Paul is trying to, he says that he wants all the mask restrictions gone because he's tired of being inconvenienced when
Doesn't
he's eating
he
his
fly
peanuts.
Private?
I'm sure he does.
I would think that he flies private, so it doesn't apply to you, Rand Paul. Nice try.
Well, and anytime you're actively eating, no one bugs you about having your mask on. You just take it off, unhook one ear and eat your food and stick it back on. Whatever.
Or was it like Ted Cruz? He was flying and somebody took a picture of him. He had the mask over his eyes.
Oh,
was that when he went to Cancun when
he abandoned his
Texas
state
was having
emergency?
Weather problems, electrical problems.
Left his poor dog alone.
It's like I wish some of them would just stop talking because it's like no one cares about what your reason. First off, there's no way that Rand Paul flies commercial,
right?
And the same politicians, they're not for national regulations and they let businesses decide what their policies are on their own.
Right. Do they think the government runs the airlines?
So if the airline chooses, well, it technically does because it's FAA regulation.
Well,
it is.
Yeah,
but
it's a combination, because they are so highly regulated by the FAA, they can their policies have to align with the FAA and probably can go stricter, but can't be looser.
Right, but they're private businesses, though. They're allowed to say what they want to do
Right.
Yeah.
with in the lines of the regulations. Yes.
Yeah.
Right,
So,
and as far as I've heard, all the airlines were on board with the mask regulations.
As far as I'm
Mhm.
aware,
Right.
yeah.
well, you're in a tube.
Yeah.
Like, stuff just circulates in there. Have you ever been near stinky people who are farting? Like, the fart just circulates in there for a while.
Someone did that on my flight too. I was like, oh God.
I know. It's like, it's disgusting.
Well, you know.
Mhm.
But yeah, coming home, luckily, it was a very uneventful flight. That was nice, I'm fortunate. Like I said, I've been flying since I was a kid. And not that, there's never been mishaps or, missed flights or gotten stuck, whatever, This is the first and only time something like this has ever happened on a flight that I've been on. And I will be very happy if it never happens again, to say the least.
What was the vibe in DC like?
Well, I was at my conference for 3 days, so it was very like insulated there. Not everyone seemed to really like know about it. Because even so, stuck in Kansas City, I called my hotel and let them know. And it turns out there was the woman who was sitting across the aisle from me was staying at the same hotel too. But I didn't know her name. But, I called the hotel, let them know, like, hey, this is what's going on. Not certain if I'm going to get in tonight. I am coming. It might not be till tomorrow, but if it's tonight, it'll be very late. And, don't give my room away kind of thing. And even when I checked in, the person there, she knew there had been some delay in everything. And the woman across the aisle from me got there like at the same time as me too. But they didn't seem to know or had seen the news or anything like that. And so at that point, like before I go to bed, I'm like doing a few text messages, and even the next evening around dinner time, a few text messages, like my friends are telling me, oh, I see it on the news. And I'm like, okay. Like I said, I didn't see any of the news stories, just the tweets that one guy was doing that the written news channels picked up. The Kansas City news seemed to pick it up faster than anyone else because they knew and they were right there. But I didn't see any reporters in the airport or anything like that.
And what did the airline do to compensate you for the trouble?
Oh, yeah.
And you should say the airline too, to give them a plug.
It was American Airlines.
Okay.
Flight 1775.
I think we're flying American to Boston.
So
we better not have any assholes on our flight.
No.
Seriously. So it's funny. I didn't expect any compensation because this was clearly something out of anyone's control and whatnot. So I'm sitting in my conference, and I forget if it was Tuesday or when. It must have been Tuesday because I was in the conference and not doing the other stuff on Wednesday. I get this email, and so of course I open it up because it's American Airlines, and I'm like, why are they emailing me? My flight's not, my flight home's not till the end of the week. They credited everyone on the flight with 20,000 airline miles, which, like any airline, if you like time it right and pick the right flights and blah, blah, it's a free flight, free round trip flight, And so it was really cool because I'd actually just used a little over 20,000 miles, like 3 weeks prior. So I'm like, yes, I'm back to my full account. I thought that was really nice of them. I didn't really expect them to do anything, okay, so I got in late, I have a good story to tell. Well, I don't know if it's a good story, but you know what I mean,
What time was it DC time when you got in?
I got to the hotel around 12:30 in the morning on, I guess that would have been Monday morning.
And you departed when, Vegas time?
Oh, so I left Arizona around 3 in the morning. My flight left, because they're telling you to be at the airport 3 hours early now, and not just 2.
3?
Yeah. Yeah.
What?
So they're telling you 3 hours early now. And I'm I'm that rule following dork.
And you still get through.
Well, me
you
too.
still get through security like within 30 minutes. Or
Well,
less.
it depends,
Usually.
So like some of my flights have had to be there early. In Vegas, I always seem to get through security like lickety split quick. Coming back through DC, it took freaking forever. Leaving Boston and coming here, it seemed to take forever too. I mean, it's just different speeds, different places. But so my flight was at like 7 or 8 in the morning from Vegas to LA with hour and a half in between, so like really quick, like change gates and, sit down for 15 minutes and start boarding kind of thing. So real short layover in LA. Not even enough time. They had really good stores in LA. They had an FAO Schwartz. Didn't even get enough time to check out the toy store.
Is that the one that took a picture of the giraffe?
Yeah. Yeah. And so that was before anything was, dramatic and going on, But yeah, no, I like I said, I thought American handled it really well throughout. It would have been nice to get more frequent updates. When we did start getting updates about when we were going to leave Kansas City or, all that, there was some confusion. So I don't know what that was all about. Like my updates kept saying Charlotte to DC, where other people's were saying Kansas City to DC. So I don't know what that was all about, but that was like the worst thing that happened,
So you were up for about 20 hours straight?
Yeah.
Approximately?
Yeah. Monday at my conference was rough.
Oh, what time did your conference start?
8 a.m.
Oh.
Yeah. It was a tough one.
And what time did you get there?
12:30.
12:30 at night. By the time I got to bed, it was about 1:30. Because like at this point, like I still have like full makeup on, got to like get my room set up and, all of that. I did not really catch up on sleep until like, I didn't feel like I'd been rested until about Wednesday morning. Yeah.
Oh man.
It was tough.
Oh
was
yeah.
Tough. But like I said, it really good to, know that everything was okay, that we were well taken care of, whether, I guess it was a couple of Marines, maybe a Marine and an Army guy, like not really certain on the details on that one, but people stepped up, just everyday passengers stepped up and made sure that everyone else on this flight was safe. I mean, you figure 30 some odd rows, 6 people a row, whatever that math is, all those people, were safe and well cared for because of a couple of passengers and the crew.
Yeah. Could you imagine being like the disruptive person? Like you say you're on a flight with like 225 people, let's put a number out there, and you're the one asshole who diverts because of a mask and you ruin that many people's plans?
Nope. Cannot imagine that at all. I don't want to. Like, I don't ever want to be that big the asshole.
Yeah. The other thing we have coming through this week here in Kingman, Arizona, where our studio is located, is on the 23rd, we have the Freedom Convoys, which is coming through.
Oh, those crazy truckers are coming through?
Yeah, the truckers are starting.
Oh, Jesus, fuck.
It doesn't start Barstow. It starts a little south of Barstow, and then they're going from
I thought it was Barstow.
Well, I think they're going to gain. So basically, Barstow and whoever routes this thing, their planning commission must be horrible because they're going from Barstow to Vegas, but then down to 93 to Kingman, and they're going to be staying the night in this area. Now, I hear rumors it's like 1,000 truckers. 1,000 trucks.
Do we have 1,000 hotel rooms?
No, we don't. Where are these things going to be parked? And for those, it's going to get really local. The 93 to 40 interchange is awful.
Right. It's bad on a good day.
Right.
Yeah, and they'll probably just sleep in their trucks.
Probably.
That's what they're talking about, is just lining up along the 93.
Wait a minute. Wednesday, isn't that the day we're supposed to get like the really cold temperatures and snow?
Yeah.
Good. Let them freeze in their trucks. Different kind of snow.
But, pretty much, I would say most of the mandates are done here in the United States for the most part.
Well, we never had any
let me
here.
just
Let's
say,
be realistic.
Because these people only listen to Fox or Newsmax or OAN, the other one, they apparently missed what President Biden said about truckers and the vaccine mandate. In the United States, now they're doing this because of Canada decided to do this.
Right.
Yeah, they're trying to overthrow the Canadian government. And our U.S. senators are in support of that.
But in the United States, if we could just say here that President Biden said long ago, but these idiots don't listen to him, that since truckers' office is their cab, there is no vaccine mandate for them. They are exempt from a mandate. Wow. So it's like, what are you guys protesting for? Because I'm all for protesting, but what are you out there then for?
This has officially surpassed the stupidest thing we've stolen from Canadians, which previously was curling.
I don't know. Curling's pretty cool.
I
had a boss whose kids both competed at the national level, so come on.
I'll admit,
you sweep the ice and make the stone go.
I'll admit,
that
I used to listen to this radio show that made fun of it, and I'm like, okay, I have to watch it, and I sort of got into it.
I was watching it yesterday. It was on the Olympics, right? And I'm like sitting there watching the TV, and I'm like, how is this an Olympic sport? And I didn't even know what it was at first. I'm like, what is this event anyways? And they're like, somebody goes, it's curling. And I'm like, I started dying laughing because we already had talked about the whole curling thing. I'm like, how is this an Olympic sport though?
There's some weird Olympic sports. Well,
yeah,
the one with
it's like shuffleboard.
Yeah, but curling's the only one where for 4 years you can sit on your couch and just drink beer and have a big beer belly and still get out there
and sweep the ice. Okay, if only people could have seen that, all of us making the sweeping.
Well, we make it. Now, I get the right, and I'm for people protesting peacefully.
Mm-hmm.
But, okay.
I'm even for civil disobedience, but what they don't get is...
Here's my part, though. It's the same people who, when the protests after Trump won, and they were blocking the roads, they were like, we're going to go down there, we're going to mow over these protesters. And in certain states, conservative states, they came up with laws saying, yeah, you can run over protesters. But now they're for blocking the roads.
But they're never going to admit the hypocrisy.
No.
They're not.
The people who complain about protesters blocking roads tend to be the folks who lean more right or more conservative, whether they're extreme or not. And so okay, so you want to do all the stuff that you say you're against? And okay, half the problem is the supply chain. The truckers, they are a lot of the supply chain. So let's exacerbate the problem.
I'm even for them blocking the roads, because if they want to do the civil disobedience, okay, but most people that do that are willing to be arrested and go to jail for what they are doing. These people are not. They are assaulting police officers.
Any decent protest makes a big stink and inconveniences enough people so that people take notice.
Right, that's the point of it.
Okay.
But these people are so-called the thin blue line, the quote-unquote, air quotes, back the blue people.
Did you guys happen to see... I don't know. I posted so many pictures, but I posted this one picture from a protest. It was in the 70s or 80s, maybe even the 60s, that was hanging in the National Museum of African American History and Culture. And back then, it was a white guy using an American flag on a pole as essentially a spear to push away and likely stab, who knows, a black man. And so this crap's not new.
No.
Yeah. This crap is not new.
Well, I mean, like Snow, you said you're for civil disobedience, but you're not for, say, the rioting and the looting and the property damage, right?
Nobody.
But disrupting, say, free travel, you're okay with that.
I'm okay with even what they're doing in the sense that if they really feel they need to, the only thing that
until they assault the people who just live on that
right.
street.
Well,
I'm
is
not
what they were
okay
doing
with
in Canada.
them assaulting, but my thing is here in the United States, the issue that I take with them wanting to do it here is you don't have a fucking mandate. Like, I don't know what you're doing. I don't understand it.
Okay, a couple things though. Number one, the same people who were for the truckers' protest were mad at Eminem for taking a knee at the Super Bowl. Even if you didn't realize what he was doing, and I didn't really pay attention to it, I was like, okay, was he okay?
The same, right? They're the same people who canceled Colin Kaepernick.
So you're against this guy during the middle of a performance, kneeling down and not saying a word, but you're for disrupting the supply chain. It just makes no sense.
They're all about tribalism. They're just going to do whatever their side, whatever their leaders tell them to do. It's almost like they have no minds of their own. Well, they're so-called, like their Lord and Savior, Donald Trump, whatever he tells them to do.
Well, the funny thing was, I had one guy who posted, and he was posting in support of the truckers, which fine if you support him, you support him. But he was just like, well, I don't see all you idiots who are Biden, and he said this in the post, all you idiots who are Biden supporters sat back and didn't say shit when Biden didn't do anything when all the burning of the cities was going on. And I was like, hey,
Biden wasn't president.
Exactly. I was like, that was during the previous administration that happened.
Yeah.
They don't. And these people vote.
And the majority,
maybe there should be a test for voting. I don't know.
When there were heavy mandates, it was during the previous administration. Where was this trucker convoy then?
Well, I know, Biden tried to put in other mandates where, if you worked for a business that had more than 100 employees, blah, blah, blah. And so he tried to expand them. He tried to put them, he successfully did for a period of time, had them in place for federal employees and people who were contracted by the federal government, blah, blah, blah. So, that is not something that was done under the previous administration. But, I'm on board with that. When I walked into my conference in D.C., when I walked into businesses in D.C., I had to show my vaccine card and my photo ID. And they double-checked the name that they went together.
Now, I was up in Vegas yesterday, and even though Vegas has lowered all the restrictions that you don't have to wear a mask, took my kids to a GameStop, but on GameStop's door, they had you can't come in without a mask. There's only 10 people allowed in the store at a time. So they were still, their company policy was to still have this. But the thing I noticed the most was, even though there was no mask regulations, in a lot of businesses, just people were still, the employees and a lot of the customers were still wearing masks. They were still doing the right thing.
Yeah, the DC mandates ended while I was there, actually. And, a lot of businesses kept their signs up and you still had to wear your masks. I actually went into a little breakfast shop, a little sandwich shop, the day the mask mandates ended in the city, and the shop owner had his mask on and some other customer did not. And it was weird, to go into a small enclosed space and have someone not have a mask on. And the shop owner started talking to me about it. And here I am pre-coffee. I don't really want to engage with anybody at that point. But, he was even saying, he's like, yeah, we don't have to do it anymore. I took down my sign, but I'm keeping mine on. He's like, it's still too much out there.
Yeah. I mean, Snow and I are both getting over COVID. I have it worse than she did. But I'm having long-term still symptoms, I'm testing negative, but I still have this constant cough. I'm still fatigued. But I found myself since then, even though I didn't really go anywhere until I tested negative.
Mm-hmm.
Once I tested negative, but then I would be more conscious of wearing the mask. Now,
Yeah.
I don't think I'll get it again anytime soon because I'm fully vaxxed. I've gotten the booster. Now I've gotten COVID.
We have superpowers.
Yeah.
I was gonna say you're both like immune to everything. Holy
Right.
crap!
But just out of, I don't know, respect for other people,
Mm-hmm.
you know, just in case. Oh well, maybe if the test was false.
Well, and like you can get it again though. Like Prince Charles I just heard on the news today that he's gotten it a second time, and the Queen's gotten it now, and she probably got it from him.
And you can get like different strains. Like
Exactly.
there's the different strains. It's kind of like HPV. Like, you know, there's like 100 of those strains or more. It's like
No.
Like where
you can
did that
still
come
get
from?
like
Snow.
well, because it's a virus also. So it's like that's what people don't get when they're like, well, you know, all the people who are like, well, everybody needs to just get it. Like I work with folks who are like, we all need to just get it and get herd immunity. And I'm they're
really
like, I got
don't.
it and I beat it. And I'm like, yeah, but you can get other strains. Like,
So here's the thing that's wrong with that. And it's funny. I need to go back because I haven't yet. But, I was listening to a news story and, it was talking about how your average healthy adult should actually get sick every 1 to 2 years just to kind of keep building your own immune system and whatnot. So it's actually not the greatest thing if you don't get sick at least once every 2 years.
I hardly ever get sick.
I'm someone who hardly ever gets sick.
I hadn't been sick in 2 years.
I don't think I've been sick in 3 or 4 years. Somewhere, maybe 3 years. I'm not
I've
certain.
been sick in like 5 years.
But I don't care what it is. I don't care if it's a cold. I don't care if it's a flu. I don't care if it's my allergies. I don't care if it's the strep throat or that Kingman crud bullshit that goes around this town. I don't want it.
Mm-hmm.
I have a life and I like to participate in my life, and I don't really feel like being down for the count for days on end because some idiot couldn't be bothered to think of other people and, wear a fucking mask.
Well, hey, we'll see what Snow. If you get out early on Wednesday, we should go out and interview these people if they're like sing by us
Hopefully I will.
with our masks on.
Show.
With our mask on.
That'll really set them off.
What are you actually protesting? Is what we can say, because even California came out and said, "Well, we've gotten past."
They lifted their mandate.
So we're going to treat this like an endemic now.
Mm-hmm.
No, we'll still have the testing. If
a
you
lot
want
of states have lifted their mandates. New York did.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah.
Didn't they just last week or something, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Like I said, the DC ones lifted while I was there. I mean, let's face it, we never really had any in Arizona.
Yeah, I know.
No, because freedom.
And guns.
Yeah.
It's just like Florida. Like Florida, I don't think ever had any either, right?
Well, there's a reason why all the, Darwin stories start with, and a Florida man.
I know.
Yeah, I listened to this radio show out of Vegas, and they do this thing called the Redneck Report a few times a week, and 2/3 of the time, the story is in Florida.
Mm-hmm. I'm surprised more of those stories aren't in Arizona.
Well, remember
Arizona does get some crazy stories.
Remember that year Bill Maher did his Head Up the Butt award, and he even has a little trophy with a guy. There's a head up the ass. Like, you don't see the head. It's just, it's
That's
bent
awesome.
over this way, and it's like up the ass. And Arizona lost to Florida. Like, Florida ended up winning.
Not to say.
But Arizona came runner-up.
We had the Sacabera Cone thing a few years ago. But we also had the one, what was the one you turned me on to? It was a Comedy Central guy. And he was talking about one of the stupidest places in the United States.
Arizona?
Oh,
No, specifically Kingman.
Oh,
Daniel Tosh.
Yeah, Daniel Tosh.
Yeah, on the Tosh show.
2.0?
Yeah, so on his show, he was, they were actually talking about a city, a little town in Georgia. And then they said, but even blah, 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 Georgia, whatever the name of the town was, didn't win the, isn't the most uneducated city in the United States. That award goes to Kingman, Arizona. And it showed the train water tower and the little downtown area. And it said, yes, as per the 2010 census report, because this was back like a few years past 2010. And so I'm talking to somebody at work and I go, did you know that Kingman's like the least uneducated place? And they're like arguing back with me. I'm like, no. It's on, you can look up this Tosh.0 or whatever episode and it'll show it in there. It shows downtown and then it says how as of the 2010 census. And the person I'm telling goes, excuse me, Sarah, let me just let you know that it is 2016. And I'm like, yeah, but we only do the census every 10 years. Okay. So we'll be doing one in 2020. Well, let's see how we fare.
And so it takes a couple of years for all the information to be analyzed and all those different statistics to be put together.
Due to a new report that came out this week, Arizona is now the worst educated state.
I believe that.
It wouldn't surprise me.
No, it is.
Yeah.
So.
Well, we always rank 48th, 49th.
Now we're the worst.
Well, that probably has to do with, like how many times do you have to recount votes before you realize who actually won the election?
Let's get the cyber ninjas on it.
Yeah, because they know how to count.
No, we need to count Muppet out there going, one vote.
2.
Oh my goodness. That would be awesome, actually.
Okay, well, on that note, we'll wrap this one up. And hey, it's good to get back in front of these microphones. Yeah, come on. Microphone doesn't do that.
I don't know.
Yeah, it sounds all right. No.
Mine's not either.
Huh.
It's probably better, though. It would really hurt our ears.
Because we have professional microphones, that's why.
That's right.
Wait, but you're amateurs.
We are amateurs.
What
Whatever.
the hell?
Amateurs with pro mics.
Amateurs
Woo-hoo!
now heard in 42 countries.
Oh, that's awesome.
All right.
My mom was just asking me, how far your reach is. So I'm like,
yeah.
I don't know.
We are heard in Russia.
Fuck Putin.
So Putin, please don't invade Ukraine.
No kidding.
Bear man with little hands. Stop.
Get on your horse and ride.
Just suck it up and stop.
And who are the idiots in Congress that are getting sanctions against Russia?
Probably all the normal but didn't we talk about them earlier? I'm sure Rand Paul,
probably
Ted Cruz, Marco Rubio.
Yeah.
Who am I missing?
Little Marco.
I'm sure Marjorie Taylor Greene is on that list. It's got to be.
Wow. Oh,
wait, she's not senator though.
Yeah, but
she's in the House.
She's still cray-cray banana pants.
But still a joke from Don Lemon that Marjorie Taylor Greene couldn't find Ukraine on the map, even if you had a picture of the letter U in a crane.
With a Sharpie.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. All right.
It's probably true.
All right. Well, on that note, we'll wrap this up, and we will talk to you next week.
All right. Bye, y'all.
Bye. Thank you, Heather.
Thank you.
Thanks, Heather.
Bye.